The Toy Biz Marvel Legends line only lasted 4 years, but they put out an unreal amount of characters. The only true comparison is to the Beatles, who released 12 albums in 8 years. Every song was great, but some would go on to become all-time classics. The same could be said for Toy Biz's Marvel Legends, and just like the Beatles, while styles may have changed, they were the foundation for everything to come. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics, history, and action figures, and home of the mystery box. And this one is packed to the gills with Toy Biz X-Men figures. Now, there's a ton to get through, so let's just jump in and go ahead and get started. And let's jump ahead with one of my absolute favorites, Colossus. This early Toy Biz Colossus, I think, really shows like how Toy Biz was able to make unique action figures that just really stood out. Like, they did not reuse any parts, to my knowledge, making this figure. This is a completely new sculpt. Look at the stern look and just how metallic Colossus looks. Now, they took a little bit of liberties here. I mean, there's a little bit of color variation. I don't know if this is just faded over time. The fact that this orange kind of doesn't really match the yellow, that's certainly possible. But the strength of these huge flexed biceps, the fact that, you know, you've got the extra articulation at his hands. I mean, this is a great one. Plus, they weren't afraid to experiment with crazy articulation. So you can get Colossus's shoulders up. He's got this rubbery shoulder joint, but look at that bonanza crazy butterfly there. You know, this is what I'm talking about when I'm like, Toy Biz laid the foundation for everything to come. Now, we're going to see some mistakes. We're going to see some things that didn't work. And I would argue that probably this didn't work, but they were willing to take the chance on it. And I think that's what makes it so awesome. Here's another early X-Man with Iceman. I want to say this came from the X-Men Classics subline, that this is not the straight Marvel Legends one. Another thing that I always give Toy Biz credit for is paint wash. They did so much more wash overlay than what you see on current figures. Look at how this extra blue really brings out the icy look for Iceman. Of course, they also had more accessories than most people did before or since. So Iceman comes with this fairly doofy ice shield. You can see that says 2006. So yeah, that would have definitely been in the X-Men Classics line. Really, really nice. Oh, actually, there's a second version of the same figure. I guess I somehow managed to pick up two of that guy. This is one of the later figures. Definitely not one of the best, but this is an Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth. Let's put him the right way. Again, we're going to see these bald hips everywhere, but a predominantly new sculpt, I would imagine. Really nice. One of the things that Toy Biz, again, they gave such expressionful faces. Like, this one's not necessarily my favorite, but it's very classic for an angry Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth. Let's pick one that doesn't work quite as well. So here is our Phoenix figure, and she's a little kind of derpy in the eyes. You know, that's something that Hasbro has done so well with their face print technology, is that the eyes look so incredibly realistic. That was not something that was happening in the early 2000s. But the sculpt is still there. You can see all of that detail in her hair. The problem is with these female bodies. Like, okay, like, I know you want to add articulation everywhere, but that hand just doesn't look like anything. And these proportions, particularly with the ball shoulders, these weird butterflies, and of course, the way the hips just do not work on female figures. Plus, they're so flimsy, it's really hard to get any of them to stand up. Now, of course, she came with a stand, which makes it better. And the paint app is really good, but you're going to see how this set the foundation. You know, it really wasn't until that deluxe Black Widow that was a Target exclusive that I think Hasbro really figured out how to make great female action figures. But when you see the Toy Biz ones, there's going to be some of those same. Now, this one's a little bit better. So we didn't go with the ball hips on this Storm. I think this was maybe a later one, probably in like that X-Men Classics line from 2006. Let me see if I can see it on there. Yeah, I think that's what that says. Really nice. I love this rubbery cape. And the fact that they got the paint wash on the cape gives it that much more texture. of course, that storm head is so great. Look at that little smirk that, that's what you would look like if you were truly a goddess. Like, you're not afraid of anything. You're powerful. You can just sit there and smirk at the rest of the world. Plus, you've got like a 16-inch waist because, that's what girls look like. Anyway, still figuring it out with the female bodies. There were some missteps along the way as well. I talk about how Toy Biz was not afraid to, make new parts, completely new sculpts for things. So, like, here's their Omega Red. I mean, look at that. Look at how that face, look at how much energy and action is in that hair with that top knot. I mean, this really does have that Jim Lee oversized, just all of the action to it. I mean, that's a great figure. And again, because of the Toy Biz paint wash, they tended to be a little bit darker. These figures were, maybe not as brightly colored as the newer Hasbro ones. And sometimes that really works. Like for a figure like Omega Red, I kind of think this still stands up, better than maybe even its newer versions. But then you have things like this, where they clearly were using parts from other figures. I mean, look at the boots on Cyclops. And this is one where that paint wash maybe doesn't work quite as well. Look how dirty the boots and the feet, the gloves are. Psyche should be our leader. He should be bright. He should be yellow and blue. Maybe not quite as much of this wash all the way around. Now, it does certainly bring out the details of the sculpt. I mean, look at the back muscles, how well those are. And, they gave us, again, the articulated hand, so you can kind of get his hand up to his head. Not really. I guess maybe he does have double jointed elbows, so you can almost get him there to sort of do the sort of thing. But this one, we got better versions. But this was your classic Cyclops. Let's grab his brother. Still one of my absolute favorites. I still think this still works. So this is kind of a body that they did use over and over again, which is smart. So this is kind of the thin framed body. I think we saw this on Spider-Man figures. We certainly saw it on a lot of other Marvel Legends. Still has the ball hips, but with the black sculpt, you don't really see it. I think this is still the best facial sculpt and head that we've gotten on a Havoc figure yet. Plus, that is a much more comic accurate look. With his hands, with the way that they did the articulation on his hands, it really gives that kind of blasting effect. His neck tilts back. He's got good bend at the waist, so you can get him into that like super accurate sort of blasting pose of Havoc. I don't know. We've gotten newer Havocs, but this is one that I feel like really does stand the test of time. Rogue. Here is an extreme X-Men Rogue. So this is one of the biggest departures for Rogue in her typical costumes. She's normally got some kind of mostly green based costume, but in this era where she was in extreme X-Men, look at that. You can even see the sculpting in the back of her like leather jacket there. Again, it's really gotten loose and wobbly over time. These arms are so flimsy. Even with these flimsy arms, they still gave us double jointed elbows. That's amazing. But they're pretty loose. But this was in the X-Men Classics subline. But still, really cool that they gave us a total costume variation for that. Ah, yes, Remy LeBeau. Another one where Toy Biz crushes the facial sculpt. Look at the smirk on Gambit here. Oh, that is so strong. And again, those paint washes bring out you can catch his 5 o'clock shadow without it being overdone. That's just really good. The soft goods are nice. Now, if they'd have had an underwire, they would have been even better. This one may have been like in a multi-pack, because I think the very first one had more of a pleathery soft goods that kind of tended to break up and fade. But look at that. Look at all of the detail sculpted in and then washed in on Remy's costume. Again, here's where articulated fingers really work. Look at how you get that kind of flicking action for Gambit, and then he has more of a grabbing hand over here, but you've got the exposed gloves. Nice detail. I mean, this is a good figure. He's a little small. He doesn't scale quite as well, but dang, man, look at that face. That is so good. Speaking of faces, Here is a Beast figure, and this is like the, trying to, this isn't really comic accurate. This is more just for kids, but, I've shown this in other videos. He's got the drop down laptop. It's just so cool. Giant blaster comes up on his back. I'm sure that, yeah, it's got like a shooting mechanism, so that would have like launched stuff, but a very unique sculpt for Beast's head. Never afraid to just make an action figure of a dude in a wheelchair. Really strong Professor X. I have loved this chair. I think this chair really represents a lot of the time on the X-Men. He's got a peg. Yeah. Oh, he's got double pegs, actually, so he'll fit pretty nicely into the chair. But really great comic looking Professor X sculpt. They didn't have to go too hard into Patrick Stewart. They really made it much more comic accurate. He's got the arched eyebrows. They're classic and really cool. Great that he came with a super accurate, really nicely detailed wheelchair as well. Now here's one that didn't work. This was a single carded figure. So this figure, single card, costs the same as here's a second, as this. So that's the kind of plastic that they were willing to throw down. Now, this is a dumpy looking Apocalypse. I mean, look at his proportions, just how like squat he is. This is like the Wolverine version of Apocalypse. But, good head, certainly get that crazy mouth design, that Walt Simonson inspired mouth design. I dig it, but we're going to see a far better version. We'll keep him around so that we can compare him here in not too long. Now, while we've got him, here's a Build-A-Figure. So here is the Onslaught Build-A-Figure. And this thing's pretty doggone hefty. I mean, Toy Biz originated the whole concept of Build-A-Figures, first with Galactus, which is still absolutely fantastic. And then the second one was the Sentinel. And I have 3 of the Sentinels. I was gifted one, which I'm so thankful for. But just, the whole idea that you would pack in these extra parts and then get people to buy the entire line of figures, and then you would get a unique character like Onslaught. Look how great that head is on that one. Oh, so good. And just what a innovative, unbelievable thing. Here's our same Storm, just in black. Again, look at how, I mean, it's on her breast, but, boobies aside, look at how the paint wash does sort of bring out more of the sculpt of this figure. And there's wash, again, across this cape. And I love the way this cape flows. It's a simple mechanism where it's just kind of looped around her wrists, but it gives that motion, and that motion goes with that incredible flowing hair sculpt. Look at that. Look at how lush that is. These things look so good in displays. They had more action to them than a lot of our current figures do. And here's where they're keeping up with the times, because just before, or, kind of right towards the end of their time with the license, Grant Morrison had introduced the concept of secondary mutations into the comics, and Beast was one of those that had it, and it left him with a much more feline type head sculpt. So this is like the cat Beast head, and they got it, man. They got it, and got it really nicely done. Now, I don't know what this whole outfit is. I don't really care. I got this figure because it had that more Frank Quietly, Grant Morrison era, new X-Men era cat Beast head sculpt. So cool. Again, when you're talking bang for your buck, and they are still selling these to kids. So here is Archangel, who's part of the deal with his wings is they would shoot off these metallic tips, like he could use those as weapons. And so they captured that with these spring-loaded launchers back here. They've been long since lost to time. But just look at the size of this wingspan. I mean, it's the entire box. So, and they're all sculpted, and they've got a wash through them as well. Plus, this is not an easy paint app to pull off. It would be really easy for this pinkish reddish color to bleed into the blue, and particularly up here on this Warren Worthington head sculpt. But it's tight, man. Even the black lines that outline the markings on his face are tight. Let's grab some more Angel. Well, here's Angel wings. Well, while we got them, again, paint wash. Look at this. Look at how much detail. The sculpting of just the the feathery aspect. You know, it's not like everything is uniform. And if you look, each individual feather is sculpted all the way through. And then it just has a simple mechanism where, here we go. So here is the standard release Red Angel. And I mean, it's got its problems. Giant, weird ball shoulders, ball hips. But when you put these wings, and they just sort of snap right on. Of course, they had to be off in order to get in the package. And the reason why, see, they just snap right on. Just piece of cake, just like I said. Actually, they're still tight after all these years. Boom. Look at that. Look at how huge that is. Of course, they're articulated. You know, you can bring them back and forth. But that's a spectacular piece. Yeah, you got the dark tips on the feathers. Oh, unbelievable. Oh, this is another one. Bishop. Again, I'm not sure if they utilized these parts for other figures. Of course, he's got these huge holsters. He's got that great weapon that fits. I always love it when you can keep the weapons on him. But again, the expression of that head sculpt. Bishop is a tragic character who has seen more than any of us hopefully ever will. And it comes across in that head sculpt. Accurate hair, just strong, solid, bulky body. So good. All right, let's talk about, I made the reference to the Beatles at the beginning of this video and how, there are a ton of great Beatles songs, but then there's Hey Jude, there's Yesterday, there's Let It Be, there's She Loves You. There's songs that transcend music, and that's what I think about this Beast figure. This Beast figure is still a gold standard 6-inch action figure. I mean, unbelievable articulation, phenomenal sculpting. Yes, they did some crazy things down here at the waist, but what it does is it lets you get him into those positions that you're used to Beast getting into. He can get crouched all the way down, and because of the pitch of his chest, he looks perfect like that. And then this head sculpt with the articulated jaw is just perfect. I mean, this is absolutely a Hey Jude of action figures. I think it is just absolutely phenomenal. Articulated fingers, even an individual articulated finger on each side, which it just absolutely works. So, na, hey Beast, love you, man. And while we're doing it, he also came in a box set version with his lab coat. So let's just take it up one more notch and go full scientific Beast with his lab coat. So good. All right, we saw classic Cyclops. Let's take a look at Jim Lee Cyclops. Now, Cyclops, his original nickname was Slim, and this actually made that come true. Here he's on that tiny frame that we've seen some other figures on. Obviously, new parts, new sculpting for the Jim Lee aspect. His fingers do work, so you can get him in that perfect pose where he's like about to unleash his optic blast. Really great new head here. I mean, and I love that. I love the confidence of that look. That guy's the leader of the X-Men, and you can completely see it in this figure. Again, paint wash, but not nearly as severe as on the classic. So again, it brings out the sculpt, but without kind of muting the figure. Whoa, man, this just never ends. Okay, another one where the Toy Biz paint wash brings out more character than you could see. Look at how it fades into the neck of Mr. Sinister. Now, again, these are great. These are they really still hold up. They're that rubbery kind of material, but they're two-tone, right? They're red on the inside and then blue on the outside. There's a shading gradient going on inside this hood type thing, and you've got the phenomenal head right there. Oh, so good. Oh, even look at that. Look at the carvings into his belt, and then the ruby gem on his chest. Sinister, a toyetic kind of character, but certainly one that plays out perfectly there. I'm going to keep saying it. This one still hasn't been topped. There've been different looks. I like the X-Men 97 Nightcrawler. I like the regular mainline release Nightcrawler, but they haven't necessarily topped what Toy Biz did with this original Nightcrawler. So great. Look, he crunches so well. So you've got twist, bend, and a diaphragm cut, right? So you can really get him down. The fingers, this is one where Nightcrawler's 3 fingers do work well with that Toy Biz articulation scheme. You know, you can really kind of crunch them. And he's got the wrist bend, but it's what you can accomplish down here. Look at that. You get his calf all the way back to his thigh. And he's even, you know, we lost our mind lately when we finally got Spider-Man figures with articulated toes. Yeah, top this. Top that. That's got an articulated back toe. Are you kidding me? Oh, so good. You combine that with a true bendy wire tail that you can get into any position that you like. It hasn't been beaten. Again, you know, here it is. Yesterday, this Nightcrawler. Okay, I'm not doing that. But I'm telling you, this is the bomb. And look at that ankle. Because that ankle, and it swivels. And it's got a swivel on it as well. So you can really get this guy crunched down. I might actually take him back and replace the newer Nightcrawler that I have down on my shelf, because just that crunch right there and that forgotten back toe articulation, oh, so good. So good. I love Bishop so much, I've got a second one. And the same can be said for Colossus. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, does Colossus share the same head sculpt as Mr. Sinister? Let's pull them out and take a peek. Nope. Those are different. I wondered about it when I pulled him out and I was looking at him like, is that the same Colossus head sculpt? But it's not. This is definitely different. So good. Okay. So I don't know why. So the Red Angel was the one that was the mass-produced one, but Toy Biz was not afraid to do a bunch of variants, a bunch of short-packed variants, and they weren't super hard to find. I don't know that I ever got one on and the other one popped off. I don't know that I ever really found very many of them on store shelves, but they were pretty accessible on eBay. But one of the ones that I really wanted was this one, the Blue Angel, because somehow I just think that this color scheme for Angel works even better. It's a little bit brighter. The paint wash on this one is brighter than what we saw on the red. So I think that I love this. This has been up in my X-Men display up until I just recently changed it out. But if we get a Blue Angel variant of the new Hasbro Angel figure, it's going to go up in replace of the red one, which I think is great. While I'm looking, here we go. Here's another character that had variants. So this is Laura X, or X-23, a relatively new character at the time that they got in the line pretty quickly. 2 completely different head sculpts. You know, this is the black version and this is the purple version. I don't really know which one I like better. I don't really like either one of them that much at all. I think they're both kind of terrible. And they're on that bad female body where it's like, we just haven't figured it out. But she's got her 2 claws up top. But what makes these figures so great? Yep, there it is. Articulated toe claw. So we've seen the toe claw on other X-23 figures, but not ones that actually slid back down and could be hidden and then pop back out. Oh, fantastic. So cool. Let's grab that big boy. I know you guys have been looking at it. Let's pull this out. So we saw, where is he? Here he is. We saw Dumpy Apocalypse, and I'm sure somebody, maybe it was Jesse Falcon, maybe it was one of the leaders of the Toy Biz Marvel Legends team, was like, nah, man, this isn't going to do. So as soon as the Build-A-Figure program came out, it was like, yeah, we've got to fix this. And fix it they did with this massive Build-A-Figure Apocalypse. Look at how awesome this thing is. I mean, it is huge. Takes up the entire box. You know, he's the size of the Sentinels. I've really got to get this thing down in my X-Men villains display. I think I didn't because he is so big, he kind of takes away from the look of the Sentinels that I have down in that display. But this is just so worthy, and it most assuredly has got to get down there. You know, toe articulation on a Build-A-Figure, you know, right there. Everything you could want. And they actually did like a variant of this. There was like a darker variant. Can you imagine trying to collect variant Build-A-Figures, but hey, that's where Toy Biz was back in the early 2000s. So good. These bigger head sculpts where they've got, where you can really see, look at the veins popping out, by his temples. Oh, that's awesome. Here's another Iceman. I think this is supposed to be like Ultimate Iceman. He doesn't have the belt there. More great paint app though. More of that incredible wash. One of my favorite characters from the 80s, Longshot. He's got the crazy combed. He's got the butt cut mullet going on. I mean, this was what I wasn't cool enough to pull this off. I'm absolutely still not cool enough to pull this off, but I sure wasn't cool enough in the 80s to pull it off. But Longshot was created by Art Adams. He was the artist who first drew him. Notice Longshot is missing a finger. He only has 4 fingers, and they got it right. Absolutely got the accuracy of that right. Great figure. The extra pieces that have his sort of bandolier straps, and look at the detail and paint wash on the bag. I mean, just so good. Again, he's on that thinner body, but it totally works. Longshot, one of my favorite character designs from the great Art Adams. Okay, we've seen Storm. Still amazed by that hair. Here's another Build-A-Figure. We just talked about Longshot, so you've got to have Mojo. Now, the new Mojo that came out was good, and it's a little bit bigger. It's definitely cleaner, but there's just something so disgustingly nasty about this Mojo. Just that paint-washed belly, all the little Mojo heads sculpted into his base are so cool. And these electronics, look at how many different paint wash applications had to go into the electronics of his base and where he's connected to his chair. But it's the fact that face looks exactly like an Art Adams drawing, which is not easy. Art Adams is one of the tightest, finest illustrators in the comics medium, and they managed to get it perfect with this figure. Oh, so good. All right, here's a X-Men Classics Nightcrawler. I don't really know who this version of Nightcrawler is, but I just think it's a superior looking figure. So good. It's more of his swashbuckling sort of style. Also, in that X-Men Classics line, I don't know if this ever appeared in the comics, but this version of Sabretooth, I just think it's kind of cool. It's like, if I'm going to be better than Wolverine, by gum, I'm going to have 4 claws. Wolvie's got 3. I got 4. Forget it, dude. All right. Here's another Angel. Now, these wings, while still really good, aren't nearly the size, but they do have a really cool articulation scheme, and it's on a ratchet. You can kind of see how it ratchets, so they will stay in place. But there's just something so angelic about that head sculpt. I don't know if it's like the golden hair swept back. He almost looks like Flash Gordon, like a 1930s kind of Flash Gordon looking character. But when you've got him, with those wings behind him, that's just gorgeous. So cool. Of course, never afraid to hook us up with accessories. Here's the Phoenix Force that just came packed in with a $6 action figure, and you got the Phoenix Force with it, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, here she is. So here's Dark Phoenix. Basically the same sculpt as the Jean Grey that we saw, but when you white those eyes out and you open that mouth and then you attach her to this base, and they did cool things. Like the base, you could put it with like a push pin up against your wall. So, and because this little mechanism bends back, it would fit flush against the wall. Or if you just wanted to have her standing, this comes down and you could use it as a standing display. I mean, that's nice, man. That's just a really great touch for a $6 or $7 action figure. Oh, this might be Hasbro. It's probably based off of a Toy Biz sculpt, but I bet you that's a Hasbro figure. So we're not gonna count that. This is one of the earlier Toy Biz figures, Magneto. This is like the second version. I think the yelling version is the second version. I think the stoic version is the first version. They pretty much used the same body as Iron Man for this, and then they put the riveted cape over the top of him. But I still think it works. I love the fact that you get a removable helmet with this, because Magneto's helmet is just such a cool piece in and of itself. But the fact that it perfectly fits on, and it stays in scale with the rest of the figure. And so he looks good with the helmet on or with the helmet off. Sometimes you either get pin heads with the helmet off, or you end up with these giant noodles with the helmet on. This one actually works beautifully both ways. Super well done. Oh, I love Longshot so much. He's in there twice. Same thing for Cyclops. These figures were cheap, guys. Like you could actually afford, when they were only $5 or $6, you could afford to get duplicates like this and have, kind of two displays set up. Like if you wanted to have, are they different? No, I think they're the same. But if you wanted to have like two different displays, they're a little bit different. I think the paint wash is a little bit different on those two, but you could do that. Kitty Pryde made her way. She, I think, was in the Giant Man Build-A-Figure wave that was exclusive to Walmart, and I had to drive to a Walmart like 30 minutes away. I remember I had like an hour for lunch, and this Walmart was like 30 minutes away, and I got there and back in like 40 minutes. So if that gives you any idea of how fast I was going to go and get the Kitty Pryde, and I think this is the Lockjaw that came with her, but super cool. Super, super cool. Mystique is a character that they've finally gotten right. This wasn't it, though. This was kind of, again, sort of some of that early, we've never seen a female woman before, or even a blue woman, so we're just going to make it like that. All right, we got two girls and a guy, so let's go with Lady Deathstrike. Another one where, hey, we don't care. This is a cool figure. We'll just sculpt these insane new parts to make her look exactly like what she does in the comics. And this is one where their cuckoo articulation scheme with the fingers actually works again. I mean, look at just the paint detail on the fingertips. Oh, so good. That head sculpt is completely unique and totally fits the character. She's a little bit kind of pressed forward. Her neck has it jutting forward, but I think that works with the whole kind of movement of the figure itself. Cable is dope. This is a good one. I mean, look at how great that head sculpt is. Again, I say that 1,000 times, but it's because it's true. It really captures Nathan Summers, just his look, all of the mechanics of this arm. You can see it's almost like mimicking human musculature, but then it doesn't. Then that you have things that cross over where things don't. You've got the pouches, you've got the belts, but they even went in and individually painted the veins that kind of bring out that whole vibe of the techno-organic virus that's like killing Cable. It's all right there. Plus, this piece, it slots right there, but it gives him that awesome Rob Liefeld, huge, like giant shoulder pads with the ammunition and everything. Just a really, really strong figure. And we're going to go out with the reason why Toy Biz wasn't always perfect, with this very, very frightening rogue figure. So none of this articulation makes any sense at her hip. I mean, none whatsoever. The waist, that's great, but it's like falling down. Yeah, we've got loosey-goosey hands, but look at how frightening that head sculpt is. Woo! Oh my gosh. Pleather jacket that, has seen better days. But when it all comes down to it, Toy Biz were truly pioneers. And the fact that they tried to come up with a new articulation scheme for female hips, I'm going to give them credit for. And then they did it with soft goods. And then they did it with multiple paint apps. And even though this isn't the best figure, I think it represents kind of what the best of Toy Biz was, which was a company that was willing to take a chance to get classic figures at a reasonable price with unbelievable accessories into our hands. So if you like this kind of stuff, if you like a look back at comics and action figure history, you are in the right place. And go ahead, because we're bringing this stuff to you every week, and subscribe to Carbon Scoring.